This is a video showing how to use error bars within SPARKvue software. SPARKvue actually does not have built-in error bar capabilities. However, within the software we can create calculations so that upper and lower bounds for the values can be determined. To access the calculator, we will select the Cross Tools button at the bottom of the page, and then we will select Calculated Data. Once we have the calculated data screen here, we will need to put in our calculations. When selecting the variables, the names for the variables that you will use, please try to select the variable names that will reflect the data that's contained within them. So for setting my bounds on relative error, I'm going to call this rel error. For my absolute error, I will name it thus. And in this case, I'm going to set the bounds for 1. By defining my variables at the top, it allows me to select very quickly what the bounds would be depending on the measurement that these error bars will be applied to. Next, I'm going to create a stand-in variable for my measurement, again, so that this will make it easier to switch which measurement I'll be placing into these calculations. To select the measurement, I'll go down to the bottom of the screen and click on Measurements. In this case, I'm going to select Temperature, so I'll click on the temperature measurement. Now I'll create the calculation for the upper bound on my absolute error measurement. Next, I'll create the calculation for the lower bound on the absolute error. Next, I'll create a calculation for the upper bound on my relative error. And I'll create a calculation for my lower bound. So now that I've created my calculations, down below I'll click on my Done button, and then click on OK. You'll see the cursor bounce between the different lines as it finishes the calculations. Now we can create a display that will show not only our measurement, but also our error bounds. So we'll go ahead and go to the top of the page and create a new page by clicking on the page with the starburst. We'll select the largest format template, and from within the icons here, we'll select the graph icon. Next, to start creating our graph, we'll click on the Select Measurement on the vertical axis. And down below, we'll click on the Measurement button here to select the measurement that we'll display. We're actually not going to display the primary measurement on this. We're actually going to go to our stand-in variable measurement and have that displayed. Next, we'll go ahead and select the Add Y-axis so that we can have multiple axes displayed on our vertical axis. And then where we have the Y-axis too, we'll select on the undetermined measurement here. And again, we'll go over to the user entered data, and we'll assign this to the upper absolute error. Now, on the far right-hand side, there's actually a pull-down bar here. We'll click on this and we'll slide this down until we can select Add Y-axis yet again, so that we can add the lower bound on our absolute error. Again, go to the right-hand side, select the pull-down bar, and scroll down to the bottom so that we can assign this last measurement here. We'll select this. Again, go over to User Entered Data. And then we'll go down to the lower absolute error. And we'll select OK. So now we can see on the left-hand side we have 3 axes. Now to make sure the display is a little bit more cohesive here, we'll select on the graph tool tools icon at the lower left-hand side. And we're going to lock the zeros for all these axes. That will make it easier when we need to scale these when we actually apply the data to them. So now what we can do is we can collect some data to display on this graph. So I'll go ahead and click on the play button down here so we can collect some data. So at the top of the screen, you can actually see that our data are overlaying themselves here. So we'll stop data collection. Now you can see that there's a slight offset to each of these axes. So by lining these up, that will actually separate out the upper, lower error boundaries by first translating the data down so that we can get it in more of an area where we can see what's going on here. And now what we can do is we can find an area close to the top of this. So we'll take 24 here, and we'll expand this up to the top. So you can see that we're getting different scalings for these. So it appears that there's a big difference between these. But what we need to do now is to manually scale these so that we can get these matched to the same scale. And again, down here I'm going to grab 24. All right, it looks like we've got 28 at the top, so we'll go ahead and grab 28 here and move that to the top as well. So we can align these. And we'll repeat the same process. I'm clicking on the 28 on this last axis, and I'm scaling that up until we can match them at the top. So now we can have the display of our data, which is going to be this middle line here, our upper bound on our error data up here at the top, and our lower bound on the data for the errors down below here.